Well, I have been gone a while. Around 7 months. If anybody had been following my content, I am sorry. I have had school and other things to worry about. But now, I do hope to be coming back to YouTube. With that said, I now have this Wolverine run that I recorded like 8 months ago that I'm finally going to show you. It being requested by Ray Taylor 5176, so if by some miracle you are still watching, I'm so sorry it took so long. But now, I'll finally let it see the light of day as I ask the question, can you beat Fallout NewVegas as Wolverine? With me waking up at Doc Mitchell's house, naming myself Logan for pretty obvious reasons, and to the best of my ability, which is not very good, I made him look as close to the Logan movie as I possibly could. See? Exactly the same thing, right? Anyway, I then set my stats, putting 10s into strength, endurance and agility, as I saw these as the stats that are most in line with Wolverine's powers, and I then split the last 8 into perception and intelligence. Doing the test for Doc Mitchell, I chose Unarmed, as my main weapon for this run would be the bladed gauntlet, as I saw them being the best weapons I could match up with Wolverine's claws without mods. Then also having medicine, as this is, well, for the health build of Wolverine, because he has his regeneration, and repair, as I didn't really know what else to put, but it did end up coming in handy for the claws. Stepping out into the wasteland, I believe now is the best time for me to explain the rules for this run. As stated previously, I will be using the bladed gauntlet in place of Wolverine's claws, as I chose to not mod my already broken NewVegas. And due to there not being any yellow spandex lying around, to my knowledge in NewVegas, I chose to use a set of leather armour, as that is most in keeping with the Logan movie, and he's been seen wearing leather in other movies and comics. And for the perks, I made it so I had to obtain the adamantium skeleton perk, as that is a pretty key part of Wolverine's character, and the phoenix implant, as it regens health, so I have its abilities as close to the comics as possible. With all of that out of the way, let us continue. But the first thing on my mind was to collect the bladed gauntlet, but that would take an expedition of its own. So prior to it, I ran over to Chet's store to sell him everything I had on my person or I'd stolen from Doc Mitchell's, by Wallist Impact, and finding out he had a nice set of leather armour, which I was going to wear for the rest of the run. With all that made up, I made my way to Freeside. The only place I knew from my short research that sold the bladed gauntlet was Mick and Ralph's, so using my quick route, which was, yes, incredibly easy and quick. I don't know why people complain about it so much. All you need is a few stim packs. Yes, there are Cazadors and Deathclaws and Geckos that try to eat you up, but the stim packs I bought earlier could sort my problems out very easily. Eventually reaching the gate to Freeside with only a few nibbles, I went in, found Mick and Ralph, bartering with Mick. I purchased my claws, and with an extra pair, due to the sheer amount of damage they will be shortly taking. With my claws procured, I returned to Goodsprings, as I wanted to pretty much follow the main storyline for this run, as I had some business to attend to. Firstly, I met up with Sunny Smiles, shooting some bottles. This I will allow, as Logan fought in multiple wars, and I don't see the bottles having a soul. Aside from that, I did it so I could gain access to my first target, that of Jacob, whom I immediately put down the moment I entered the bar. Here, I will finally tell you the real meat and potatoes of this run, as I wanted it to be a special one. In this run, I will be killing almost every major faction in Fallout NewVegas, excluding a few for reasons of which I will get to when they come around. For now, I will explain the powder gangs, which are the easiest as they are all criminals, and when I say kill, I mean going to every single location they exist on the map and ticking it off. So, to this end, I went up to the gas station, spoke with Ringo to begin the plan to stop the powder gangs from harassing Goodsprings. Speaking with him, we had devised a plan to save the town. It only took the convincing of Sunny and Doc Mitchell to help us out. I returned to Ringo, and our fight began in earnest. With the great power of my claw, this fight was over in a matter of moments, me painting the pavement with the blood of all the powder gangers, keeping this town safe. Now, Wolverine had a massive task on his hands, to clean up the Mojave of all the bad people and the government. With that, I left Goodsprings and ran my ways up the road to my target over the NCR Correctional Facility, as that was the main stronghold of the powder gangers in the region. Only stopping off to beat up the powder gangers outside Gene's skydiving, I eventually reached the prison. And my first port of business was to knock Dawes' head clean off, as I met him in the entrance. I then entered and beat the living hell out of everyone who was alive in the prison, repeatedly and without hesitation. My bladed gauntlet coming in very handy here, as with max points in strength, it was very, very effective. All of this excluding Myers, as he doesn't attack, and he may be a convict, but he was not a bad person. With this mass beatdown served, I headed for Prim, in search of the man whom shot me in the head. Someone who I may have forgotten to mention by now, but Benny was also on my list. And as I reached Prim, I greeted the government in a very kindly manner. Now, you may have had some suspicion as to why I just did that, and I'll come out and say it. It is due to the fact that the government whom did the experiments on Wolverine in the comics, so in NewVegas the NCR is a practical government, so along with their hostility to the mutants, I saw it fit in that I should include them in the mass killings. And if you hadn't guessed by now, the Legion, the Fiends, the Great Khans all fall into the same category as the Powder Gangers. Now having you clued up with what was to come, well, I'd also found a map online where I'd be marking down all the groups I'd killed up to this point, and further. With that, I headed into Prim proper, clearing out the Powder Gangers, arresting the town, killing the ones outside Vicky and Vance, finding out that the deputy might know where Benny is, from Johnson Nash. I made my way into the Bison Steve Hotel, where I ripped and teared for all the Powder Gangers. As by now, I had a fair few points in the unarmed skill, so my gauntlet was pretty good at its job. I then found Deputy Beagle, helping out with his scuffle, with him telling me he needed a sheriff, and I'm just the man for the job. So I went over to the NCR Correctional Facility, got Myers, who was glad to help, so I collected him and we returned to Prim, gaining the information from Beagle that Benny was last seen up near Nipton. I went back on the road again, where I took a quick stop at the Mojave outpost, where some NCR soldiers with the target on their backs were stationed. For now, however, for a moment I showed some slight restraint, sauntering over to Major Knight, selling him some goods for caps and using them to repair my gauntlets. With this done, I did what I intended from the very beginning, and started the slaughter, giving all the soldiers in the building the 1-2, which by now had become fairly easy, as I was just one big bullet sponge, even with just the leather armour. Becoming vilified, and with my war with the NCR set in stone, looting up all the bodies, I headed outside. But for some reason, apparently nobody out there had heard the gunfire, so I chose this moment of grace, heading over to the bar, and promptly beating up everyone inside, where I reached level 5, putting some points into Unarmed, and ransacked the place for all the alcohol possible. Forgetting that I haven't mentioned this yet, Logan drinks a lot of alcohol in the movies, so I thought they'd use them as extra health. I then ran around killing everyone in the outpost. By now, I'm probably boring you with all this killing, so I'll just bring up the notable ones for now. As you can see, on the map, there's many different outposts for me to show, but for now, I cleared out most of the Powder Gangers. I just have a few more to clear up. Reaching the creature known as Oliver Swanwick, I inquired of him about the lottery he just won. After finding out it was the Legion who did the lottery, I did what was necessary. Then checking on boxcars to make sure he was just fine. Then I ran up to the centre of the town, and as with so many others, I beat Volpez and his gang to death. Then getting a Jacqueline jump scare as I had just killed her attacker on my way into Nipton, but for her rudeness I gave her my fist. The one thing that surprised me meeting the Legion was just how powerful I was with my gauntlets and leather armour. I find it quite ridiculous just how powerful I am at just level 6, considering the fact that I'm only on normal difficulty, so yeah. Now on my way up to Novak, I had a scuffle with some Legion men, but nothing of interest really happened. Once I arrived, I put on my hero suit, as I had forgotten to this point pretty much that Wolverine was a hero. So inquiring with the local inhabitants, I spoke to Dusty McBride, and he said there was a cow killer problem. So I went outside and laid in wait for this killer. And it turned out it was a fellow mutant Nightkin who would wander out of the brush, but doing my hero duty. And the fact that Wolverine has gone against multiple other mutants in everything else, I put him down, saving Dusty's cows. Now for my target in Novak, as there is a certain NCR supporter who lives here. Going up to the top of the dinosaur, I was going to have a nice chat with him, but he was far less friendly than I realised, so I responded in kind, knocking his head clean off, then bartering with the trader downstairs for some more alcohol. At this point, I had run completely out of stimpaks, so I was running off pure alcoholism, just like Logan would want, finding out more about Benny, and I returned back to the road. Not to waste any time, I will go over the quickly notable places I obliterated. That of Helios 1, where I sorted everyone inside and out, along with Boulder City, and I also made sure to wipe out everyone inside Boulder City itself, including the Great Khans. From that I found out Benny's location, that of the Tops. Knowing that, I ran along, knocking off some more outposts of enemies, reaching 188 Trading Post, where I picked up Veronica, my first companion of the run. Now having gone through the main part of the quests, I decided I'd just fast travel straight to Freeside as I'd already found it. Collecting some health from the followers on my way through, I got to the main gate. Flaunted all my caps to the Securitrons that I'd managed to gain from all the pillaging I'd done up to this point, and I ran straight into a crash. One of so many by this point. I don't think my NewVegas very much so likes me. Luckily, I'd saved not that long ago, so reloading, I headed up to the Lucky 38, where I met up with Mr. House, whom I was to be siding with this run. You may ask why I'd be siding with Mr. House, considering he is a bit morally ambiguous, but my reasoning was, he's the closest to Professor X in NewVegas, because he's kind of like a big smart man, who's like, can telepathically talk to robots, so close enough. So I aligned with him, and went over the plan to put down Benny. Maybe being slightly rabid as I weaseled my way into the Tops, slaughtering everyone in the building. Somehow coming out of it alive, I had left Benny for last, as he stood there, just staring at me, seemingly being oblivious to what I'd just done. Confronting him, at which time I attacked him, and he had a nice sleep, and I collected what I came here for, the platinum chip. I now chose this exact moment to murder every NCR troop on the strip, and that is exactly what I did. So instead of explaining it all, I made a nice compilation for you. After that fun, I returned to Professor House. He showed me his Securitron upgrades, and he sent me on a mission to upgrade them at the fort. And for me this was a good turn of events, as I needed to head there, as someone of the name Magneto, definitely not just Caesar, was now ready for my fist. But for now, I put that on hold, as I saw it as the best time to clean up the strip of all the other evils I had not already wiped out. So heading over to the Emerters, where I promptly beat everyone to death, like all the others encounters to at this point. So it may seem like I'm rambling a bit, but trust me, this is all it's going to be. So they didn't take that long to clean out, as they were just wearing suits, so they were quite squishy. Finishing it off, as I dismembered Big Sal, I then took my business to the White Glove, where me and Veronica beat all the cannibal crazies to death. With the strip cleaned up, I stocked back up with my medical supplies from the followers, and continued my hunt for evil. Now deciding, as I had previously wiped out all the NCR on the strip, my next most logical target would be Camp McCarran, so I hopped on the monorail and went straight there. Obviously I was met with immediate hostilities from the soldiers, as apparently word of mouth had spread that I'd killed a lot of them, but they were no match for my raw power. So the inside of the camp was quite simple. The only downside was the sheer amount of running around, but besides that, all the soldiers in the building were a pushover. However, outside was a completely different story, as for once during this run, I was absolutely outgunned and outmatched, and was absolutely obliterated every single point I had a go, as there was about seemingly 20 heavily armed soldiers against one dude and one girl. So, dying a few more times, I came up with the conclusion I was not ready for a full-scale war yet, so I chose to reload and try this once again, once I had a bit more strength. Now choosing to clean up the powder gangers and the NCR close to Goodsprings, so I fast travelled to the prison where me and Veronica made quick work of all those involved, even going out of my way to pick off some great Khans near the quarry. And being in that area, I had my eyes on one very special creature. Of course, you may know them. They would already be hostile to me, so when I made my way over, he attacked. And of course, I had to put him down. So say goodbye to Snuffles. Now considering how many people I was currently wiping out, I will give a quick overview, just so you know. With all these targets of the cleaning up areas I have previously been to, I now finally decided to head for Cottonwood Cove. So I fast travelled to Boulder City, and as you can see on the map, there's a nice line of Legion and NCR outposts that heads straight for Cottonwood Cove. So I didn't have to go out of my way at all, and that's exactly what I did. I went all the way down. So enjoy this compilation of me beating and tearing. Finally reaching the cove, I headed down the mountainside, obliterated all the Legion forces stationed there. Anyways, after this, I was able to free the Weathers family from a key that I'd found off Canyon Runner, and with that I leveled up to level 14 and I was able to take the Adamantium Skeleton perk, and I now was taking my first step towards my true form. With my newly found bullet resistance, I took myself down to Camp Searchlight, and as if on cue, some NCR soldiers opened fire on me. And I can say the Adamantium Skeleton perk did the trick, acting as a perfect bullet sponge with this newly found info, and the fact that usually I was able to wipe the floor with the soldiers with ease. I stocked up with stimpaks, fixed my claws to make my stand at Camp McCarran, and well, it went much better this time. Still taking around 15 minutes to clear them all out as they were very, very good, well shot. And it was no easy task. With the help of Veronica and multiple deaths, I was eventually able to claim the camp for myself, beating the final soldier to death at the front gate. I had finally cleared the government from the NewVegas area. Realising I had neglected to say up to this point, I had been going to the gun runners and selling all the useless items I had collected, and by now I had amassed quite a fortune. With this latest haul, I gained over 10,000 caps, ready for later, where I'm going to buy my implants. You also may wonder why I don't gamble. That's just because I don't have a clue how to do it. But my strategy so far has worked, so it doesn't really matter. But for now it was time for me to head to the fort and let Caesar bear the full brunt of my attack. As I returned to Cottonwood Cove, I dealt with the stragglers I had somehow left behind before and headed up the river to face the Legion, where I immediately met resistance with the guards, but by now, with my high unarmed skill and with Veronica by my side, I was an unstoppable force, cleaning up all the legionaries who met my gaze. And I would just like to say, only being level 14, and this being only my third playthrough of NewVegas, I can say I was doing quite well. Now heading into the fort proper, I was faced with the full force of the Legion firing on me from all angles, and the small fries attacking me with machetes. They were all an incredible pushover, and it was now Caesar's time. With almost everyone outside the tent put down for their evils, I headed in and immediately backed out as this allowed for some of the Praetorians and Caesar himself to follow me back out into a much fairer playing field, as they were all actually quite a challenge due to their power fists being able to perfectly block my claws. However, I had the perfect counter, using rats, which I could quickly and effectively kill them all, and I will let the absolute insanity of Caesar's death speak for itself. Yeah, I had a head fart and pushed him off a cliff, fit in. Heading back into the tent, I cleared up the remaining Praetorians and Lucius, which were no harder to kill than the others. Now taking it upon myself to fulfill my actual reason for being here, this being to help Professor House, I headed down into the bunker, sorting the chip in to fix up House's army. With that done, I went and sold some stuff to the gunrunners, and it took quite a ridiculous amount of time for me to find the clinic I needed for the implants. But once that was done, I found it. I spoke to Dr. Uzanagi, hopefully I didn't butcher that, and for a cheap price of 1,200 caps, I had myself the Phoenix implant, which on its own regens health exactly like Wolverine does, so I was finally complete. With this I returned to Professor House to give him the good news that I had woken up his army, and he told me to go gain support of the boomers, so that is what I went to go do. Coming upon George, I gave him a great thwack and headed into the rockets, and like always, I did an ample amount of stimpaks and the W key was enough for me to make it to the gate, and then they took me to meet up with Pearl and I agreed to fix the boomers' problems, which saw me help out our girl in the hospital fixing up the patients, fixing up the solar panels with some help from the ones that I could collect from Helios 1, of which the garrison I had completely obliterated earlier, so it was simple. And here my repair skill actually came in handy, as I was able to fix up the panels for Loyal. Telling him I completed that task, and becoming liked by the boomers, and them being the only faction that so far I had not completely obliterated on first contact, so that was not a very high bar to pass. My final task for them being to raise the bomber, which itself was easy, having no problems doing that, but with some problems coming on my walk over there, as I had some camps to clear out, and I may or may not have been taught a lesson by some deathclaws, so on repeat I decided to just try sneak a bit past, but I failed that, but parkour eventually came in handy. Going down to the lake, I attached the ballast to the bomber, raising it and reporting my success to Loyal and Pearl, them giving their full support to Professor House. And right after that, my escapades led back to the Searchlight, as by now I had picked up the Rad Child perk, which I realised up to now I haven't spoken about, but it does very much to help with health regen, just by having a few rads, so that came in incredibly handy. Now with the Red Child perk needing me to gain rads to help with my health regen, I thought I would kill two birds with one stone, going down to Camp Searchlight, where I wiped out the remaining NCR troops and the feral ghouls, whilst also gaining enough rads to make the Rad Child perk effective. Now restoring my claws for the 100th time at Mick and Ralph's, telling Mr. House of my success with the boomers, then dropping off Veronica at the Lucky 38, I fast travelled to Hidden Valley. Having discovered it earlier, I bet you can't guess what is about to happen. Heading down the bunker steps, the Brotherhood woke up and I went in fist swinging, and I'll say they were actually for once a hard fight, more time consuming rather, but actually harder. Luckily with my adamantium skeleton perk, the Phoenix implant and a hell of a load of stimpaks, I could get through the fight cleaning up my welcome party. Making my way into the lower levels, past all the ones who greeted me, down to the Paladin's chamber, where I started beating up all his guards and McCarran himself, who went down in 2 hits. He even had Paladin Harden, who was a pushover, as by now I had so many perks to help me out of all these fights, it ended in 2 or 3 hits. Making my way up to the reactor room, now beating up head scribe Taggart, I gained the full code, punching it into the terminal, gained the self-destruct code, and made a run for it, running past all the angry Brotherhood I had left alive on the upper levels and straight out of the bunker. Hearing a mighty boom, my job here was done. Returning to House, I told him the good news. Sadly, me not being able to protect Kimball, due to my perhaps unfavourable stance with the NCR, I was tasked with powering up the substation. But first, I set my sights on the Fiends, where I swept through the camp, butchering them all. Making my way down to Fort 3, I greeted the gate master, announcing my plans. I began another slaughter. This being nothing special, the highlight being where I wandered around for about 10 minutes, not being able to find Motor Runner, as Vault 3 is quite a maze. But eventually, I came across him, and put him to rest. I then took my leave. Now taking myself over to Cook, where I had cooked a bit myself, and having responded in kind, I gave him a nice pat on the head, and like Motor Runner, he had a nice sleep. So I headed northwest, where I cleaned up a few camps on my way, heading for Jacobstown, as they were also mutants that I could actually help out, and I felt it was high time I did more than just kill people this entire game, so I decided to help them out with their problems, and talking with Marcus, I headed in. Going in the cabin, I spoke with Dr. Henry, and decided to help him with his research into the Nightking's addiction. Grabbing Lily as my new companion, and we headed off into the nearby cave to look for the source. Inside there were many Night Stalkers which I had to put down with the help of Lily, but eventually finding a chewed stealth boy which would give an insight into the addiction. We then headed back outside where I came across Norton, a man who had been hired by the NCR to kill the mutants, giving me even more of a reason to have killed them prior, and hearing his story was enough for Logan, so I began the beatdown, and with the help of Lily and Marcus, we killed all the bounty hunters. I then returned to the dock, giving him the chewed stealth boy and convincing Lily to allow the dock to test on her. We were then confronted by Keen, whom wanted the stealth boys for himself. Left with no choice, I had to turn to my claws and killed him and his gang, them going down easy enough. Speaking with the doc, I told him to not continue the test on Lily, and I had her come along with me for the remainder of the run. After this, I took the time to wipe the Great Khans off the map. Finally, I was ready to assault the dam, so powering up the substation, I made one last run to stock up on meds and repaired my claws. I told House I was ready, and I got transported to the dam for the final battle. Now being here and not being friendly with either the NCR or the Legion could have been a cause for concern, but it needn't have been. As I remind you, I have a multitude of overpowered perks, a mutant and a Securitron to help me, so all my enemies melted before me. By surprise, getting access to the dam was incredibly easy, as the 2 power armor NCR troops went down. As I said before, they melted in front of me. Installing the override chip House had given me, he now had control over the dam. I now had to fight my way up to the Legion camp. Exiting the dam, I was met with some fierce fighting and a few bombs to the face, but I was eventually able to get up to the camp. Inside the camp is where I faced my toughest challenge yet, the Praetorians going down quick and fast, but then I came to face with a legate. Conversing with him, I chose the path of war and began the battle, and well, my game had said no to that apparently, as it decided to crash. So rewinding a bit, I was back at the fight, where I was reminded I was not a tank, being beat relentlessly by the legate and his Praetorians. Now knowing I needed to separate them, as I did a significant amount of damage to him, I tried again, turning tail and running. I let Lily have a try, then running myself, the outcome being the same, as I was swamped by power fists. Trying and failing 2 more times, I began again and entered the camp. Made sure not to use any healables before getting to the fight, and I also made sure to kill all the other Praetorians that were hiding around the corners as possible before the fight, and the sniper, so I would not be shot in the back. With them cleared out, I tried round 6, and with the help of Lily, I could single a few out and kill them separately, but finally, with the help of some acrobatics and a beam of light from the gods, the legate for some reason froze in place. So I finally concluded the fight, clearing up the last few legionary, and I made a dash for the gate, of which General Oliver blasted through. I greeted him with a great force. House congratulated me on my job well done. And now I can say, yes, you can beat Fallout NewVegas as Wolverine. Well, that took its long time to come out, only 8 months after I recorded it. I will hopefully continue to make more videos soon rather than later. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like and sub. Goodbye everybody, and I hope to see you again soon.